Hello, our topic today is on pressure groups. Yes, pressure groups. That's our topic today. In this topic, we are going to be looking at some of these questions and giving answers to them in the course of this lesson. First, what does it mean to put pressure on someone? What does it mean to put pressure on someone? What is a pressure group? We're going to be answering those questions. Next, how do strikes help to put pressure on the government? How does strike help to put pressure on the government? That is strike actions. How does it help to put pressure on the government to do something that is supposed to do? Okay, so first let's look at the meaning of pressure group. What is pressure group? Pressure groups, this is a group that tries to influence public policy in the interest of its members. So these are a group of people who try to influence public policy for the interest of its members. If the government have decided to make a policy of paying 18,000 naira as a minimum wage, owing to the level of the economy, the pressure group can come up to speak on behalf of its members by telling government that they should pay up to 30,000 as a minimum wage, that is as a minimum salary. So in other words, they are trying to influence that policy that governments have done to favor their members. Now let's look at the meaning of putting pressure on someone. Earlier, when we started, we said, what does it mean to put pressure on someone? To put pressure on someone, this is an act of worrying or embarrassing someone to try and do something. Yes, you can see this image where people are carrying placards. Okay, it's an animated image. They are carrying placards like a pressure group. One is saying, stop supersizing poverty, that is, stop making poverty to be much in the country. Then the other one is saying, we deserve a raise, like the government should increase their salaries. Okay, so these are members of pressure group trying to put pressure on the government by demonstrating and protesting. So we have said that to put pressure on someone means worrying or embarrassing that person to do something very urgent. Who are the civil society group? Now, pressure group members, they are members of the civil society. So who are the civil society group? Civil society group, this is made up of all the groups that citizens of a country are to form or join. So those groups that citizens of a country are to form or join, they are pressure groups. What do? They help their members talk to the government and they put pressure on it to see that the government grants them what they want or need. So the civil society groups is made up of all the citizens of a country who are members of different what groups. So they help their members to talk to the government, okay, and put pressure on the government to do those things that they want or need. Now, ways Nigeria civil society can put pressure on the government. What are the various ways in which our civil society groups can put pressure on government? There are 5 ways we have listed here. First is talking to the government. Yes, the civil society group will go to the government and talk to them. The second, protests. The civil society group to go on protests. Third is strike. They can take up strike actions to see that governments brings home their demand. Fourthly, embarrassing the government. They can go to any radio station, television station, and publicly embarrass the government, saying all the ills the government have been doing. Then violent protest. This one is a bad one. When the civil society group go on rampage, destroying government properties and so on. So we are going to take them one by one, analyzing each. So we have said that there are 5 ways. There are more, but we have listed 5 here that we can use to put pressure on government. So civil society group can use these 5 ways to put pressure on the government to attain and bring home their demand. So first is talking to the government. Secondly is through protest. Thirdly is through strikes. Fourthly, embarrassing the government. And the fifth point is violent protest. Can you recite this? Okay, I have said talking to the government. Okay, protests, yes. Strikes, good. Embarrassing the government, okay. Then violent protests. Let us start with talking to the government. Now, many civil society groups talk to the government about the things that is not doing correctly or about the things that their members want. They write direct letters to the people and the government and articles in the Nigerian newspapers. Now they talk to the government what they actually want. Okay, they tell the government is likely to listen to demands of larger groups than smaller groups or an individual. Okay, the image before you, this group of women are saying, women wake up for peace, we are tired, we want peace. So this is what they are telling the government. This is a civil society group, this is what they want from the government. So talking to the government can be through protest, it can be through enemies. So they are talking to the government, they are trying to put pressure on the government to give them peace. Now protest, how can civil society group put pressure on government? We said it is through protests. The image before you is the image of Martin Luther King addressing members of civil society group that the government must stop segregation of the blacks. Okay, that's Martin Luther King in America. Now, through protest, civil society groups sometimes organize their members to protest peacefully to make the government do something that they want or stop doing something they do not want. So, through protest, civil society groups are able to tell the government that it must stop corruption, it must reduce the price of fuel, it must increase the salaries of workers. Okay, so through protests, the civil society group can drive home their demand to government to give them what they actually want. The next one we're going to look at is peaceful protest. Now, when civil society group want to press home their demand, they can go on peaceful protest. Just carry placards. They'll sing songs. Okay, complaining. They might gather in an open place in a public, chanting songs and pressing home their demand so that government can listen to them. Even the society will hear their cries. So peaceful protests, they march on the streets, they don't demonstrate so much. They are peaceful, just to tell the government that this is what they want. So when we talk about peaceful protest, we say this is when members of a group come out to a public place holding signs. Signs are their placards and singing songs to complain about what they want. So strikes is another form or is another way in which the pressure civil society put pressure on government. So we say that a strike is when people who do a certain kind of work all agree to stop working as a form of protest. No, trade unions are a type of civil society, yes. Trade union, they are a type of civil society organization. So they often organize strikes for their members. So when they have asked the government to give them their demand and government have refused, so they will ask all their members to stop working. So that is what we call strike. So we've said that a strike action is when members of a particular group, okay, working together in the same profession, in the same group, could be doctors, could be teachers, it could be engineers, okay, decide to go on strike. We've seen ASU go on strike, we've seen teachers go on strike, we've seen nurses and doctors go on strike. So you see the image before you, there's a banner on strike, students and teachers. Okay, so civil society groups, that is members of the country, citizens in the country who belong to this group, and they will come and they will go on strike to drive home their demand to the government. So that is what strike. Okay, now trade unions, this is a group of people who do the same kind of work or who work for the same company. For example, if the government does not pay the nurses' salaries, they will complain to their trade union. And then the trade union that is guiding the nurses, it's the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives. The trade union tells its members to go on strike. The government will pay when there are no nurses to look after patients, give injections, take temperatures, or help the doctors. Nurses will return to work when they are paid. So all what we are saying here, you can see this image is showing nurses and doctors. Okay, so when government have refused to pay them salaries, they will complain to their trade union, that is the body in charge of their trade. Okay, uh, the trade union group will now tell them to stop work. So when they stop work, they won't attend to patients in the hospitals, they won't give injections, they won't take temperatures, they won't help the doctor. So when this happens, the government will be forced, the government will be put on pressure to pay them. And once they are paid, they return back to work. So next, the civil society group can put pressure on government by embarrassing the government. How do they do so? I said earlier they can go on the television or on the radio station, okay, to say all the ills about the government, corrupt practices, and all the sharp practices that the government is doing to put embarrassment on the government. So embarrassing the government, the civil society groups try and embarrass the government if they see that it is deliberately doing something wrong, like abusing the rights of the Nigerian citizen. For example, a member of our civil society may go on a foreign television to tell the world about what the Nigerian government is doing wrong. By so, the government will get embarrassed and stop. So when they see the news going round and everybody is aware of what they are doing, the government will stop and act correctly. So violent protest is another way the civil society group put pressure on government. If you see the image before you, there is a fire set on some properties. So these are violent protests. These are violent protests where the protesters destroy things in a bid to put pressure on the government. So sometimes pressure groups can get violent and injure government officials, or they can destroy government property. A large crowd on protest can get out of control and start destroying cars and houses. We must do peaceful protest when demanding for our rights. We must not have the right to insult or fight other citizens who do not agree with the things that we are asking our government. So violent protest is not good. Destruction of cars, destruction of properties, forcing people to join us to fight the government. They have the right to remain, they have the right to join the civil society group to fight the government. So it's not right to do violent protest. Peaceful protest is always the best option, or talking to the government. Okay, through that means you can put pressure on the government or even strike actions. Then government will listen to the demands of the trade union. Thanks for watching, and please do ensure to do your assignments and upload through the portal. You are going to use the question box to ask any question about this topic, and I will give all the answers for it. Do stay well. See you next time.